Hello friends and welcome to the Figure Central. Today we're going to be looking at these Zootopia action figures by Gong Studio. But before we get started, I did want to mention that if you enjoy the videos that I'm making, please consider liking, commenting, or sharing, perhaps hitting the subscription notification bell, or even using the affiliate link at the end of my video and also my video description. Thank you so much for your consideration. Now let's continue on to the video. So they give you a pretty big box, just a standard box with some clear windows like you see here, so you can see all the figures. You get a total of 2 additional faces for each character. You get a total of 3 pairs of hands on each character as well, and a lot of accessories. You get this really big instruction booklet, full color. All right, so we're gonna look at the accessories first, and then we'll move on to the figures themselves. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the hands. Here's the tail for Nick. And here's one of the faces. Kind of a surprise look. Here's another one. Some glasses. A popsicle. Cup of coffee, and the carrot pen. You also get the badge for Judy. And now let's look at her hands. Now let's look at her extra faces. Okay, well, let's go ahead and look at Nick first. So the ears do move. That's really cool. You get some articulation there. This is how the face comes off. So let's go ahead and... The tie here, I thought it had a wire, but it does not. So that would have been cool. They would have added a wire to that. But really good fabric. The soft goods look really good. Let's look at the neck articulation, and you get pretty good range on him. And if you look closely here, you can see that the neck is actually separate from the torso. So it's not only separated from the head, but both from the torso. So that gives you more range. So that was good that they did that. All right, well, let's look at the arms. So the sideways movement, that's the limit right there. It's as high as it'll go. But if you move it forward and then up, then the figure can reach higher. The elbows, that's the limit right there. It's the standard ball joint. It's not double jointed, so you don't get a lot of flexibility there. And there is no butterfly joints on the shoulders. The hands and the wrists is also the standard ball joint there. Ab crunch, not a lot of ab crunch there. That's as far as it'll go forward. And yeah, that's as far as it'll go backwards. Let's look at the hips. And so let's try to do the split here, and it gets pretty far, but the fabric does start to restrict how far you can go, but that's about the limit right there. Yeah. Okay, now let's look at the legs. So that's the forward movement. That's as far as it'll go. And then this is the backwards movement, and that is as far as it'll go. So not a lot of range. And then we can look at the knee here. So yeah, same thing with the knee. None of these sections so far have touched like the thighs or the shoulders. And these are the ankles, standard ball joint. So not a lot of range in the figure. The tension is good though. It's right in the middle. It's not too loose, too tight. And as far as the eyes go, the mechanism that they went with, which I've never seen, there are springs behind the eyes, so you kind of push on them and you move them around. One thing to note is that like this one right here, because the eyes are closed, the eyelids, it is harder to move those eyeballs if you're not wearing gloves. So that's something that I noticed. But let's go ahead and try to put the tail on the figure now. And it's not quite going in there. So I am gonna need to use the heat gun because I am not being successful here. So let's do that real quick. All right, let's try it again. And I'm not succeeding here. All right, so it's popping in, but it's just not staying. Yeah, it's connecting, it's just not staying. It just comes up very easily, so just something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and try the hand now. So that popped right out. No issues there. But I did have to use the heat gun on this because the plastic is just like the tail. It leans more and the more rigid is very hard to see. Once you heat it up, it pops right in. So you will definitely need to use, yeah, see the tail just came off again. You will definitely need to use a heat gun in order to switch out the hands. So just something to keep in mind because you'll probably end up breaking those joints if you don't do that. All right, let's go ahead and look at Judy. Her ears have ball joints in them, so they can move in pretty much every direction. That seam is pretty noticeable, and this is kind of loose. A lot looser than what I would like, but on both figures I'm noticing that the seam section where the faces connect, it's a little big. The gap is kind of big. Okay, well, let's look at the rest of the figure. So her outfit, this is a stretchy kind of fabric. But let's look at the neck movement. So it looks like the neck itself is not separated from the torso. So the range you're only going to get is on the head itself. Unlike Nick's body, the neck is not separate. But the range on the arm going sideways goes all the way to the top. And then if you do the forward and back here, the range is it's about the same. So then the elbow is same thing as Nick. It's not double jointed, so that's the range limit right there. And then the wrist is the same ball joint as well. Yeah, seeing the face came off again. Now there's the ab crunch right here. It's backwards. So not a lot of range there either. Let's look at her legs. As far as the splits go, that's the limit right there. That's as far as it'll go. And it's not being restricted by the clothing because it's a stretchy material. So yeah, that's the limit right there. Okay. Now the legs, this is the forward movement. That's as far as forward as it'll go. And then this is as far back as it'll go. So once again, very limited. Let's look at the knees. Yeah, that's the limit right there. Not a lot of range there. And that's the ankle. Same as a ball joint, and the knee pads, yeah, they're glued onto the fabric. Okay, let's go ahead and swap out a face. All right, that popped in. It struggled a little bit to get it to connect, and again trying to hide that seam, but it went in there. There's her belt. Good detail there, and there's the tail. See, and it sits just fine. It's not coming off. So I wish that they would have just done that with Nick's tail and not made it to where we have to connect it, because it just did not work well. All right, well, let's see if the figures can stand on their own. And yeah, they don't need any kind of stands or any kind of assistance, so that's good. Let's do a quick size comparison. So here they are next to my Ultraman from Figuarts. And now Marvel Legends Spider-Man, McFarlane Toys Batman, NECA Leonardo. If you measure her all the way to the ear, she's about 6 inches tall, but to her head, it's more like 5 inches. Same thing with Nick, he's about 8 inches if you measure his ears, but more of 7 inches if you go with his head. All right, friends, well, thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. What are my final thoughts? I feel very conflicted with this because I was so looking forward to these. I'm a huge fan of the Zootopia movie. I love these characters. I have Judy from the Revoltech line. I was gonna get Nick, but when I saw these, the promo pictures that they released looked amazing. So I thought, you know what? I'll try this, and if they look great and they work great, then I don't have to get Nick. So now they're here. There's definitely it's a mixed bag. So I'll start with what I did like. So number one thing, they did a phenomenal job with the paint job. They look great. The soft goods, the clothing, phenomenal. So they look like the cartoons that come to life. So that I was very, very impressed. I love the extra faces, all the extra accessories. The figures can stand on their own. So all of that was just perfect. The biggest issue I had was with the flexibility of the articulation. Not having double jointed elbows or knees was just a huge miss, especially for a figure this big. The other one was the eyes. Never seen a system like this where there's springs behind the eyes and then you have to touch the eyes to move them. And it seems kind of neat at first glance, but the more you really think about it, having to push down the eyes every single time, that's eventually going to wear out the paint on the eyes, so that's going to start chipping off. The other one is the other parts of the faces where the eyes are kind of squinty. It is very hard to move those eyes. So definitely would not recommend this for any kind of figure, to be honest. The tail not being able to connect properly on Nick was also a big no-no. And then the one that just stands out the most is the seams on the faces. And even some of the faces I had a hard time putting on. So the ones that came on the figures come off very easily, especially for Judy. It would just fall off if I just shook it. But the other ones, it was sometimes very, very hard to kind of get in there, even after I used the heat gun. Same thing with the hands. Having to use the heat gun every single time is a little time consuming. So all those little things kind of add up, and I'm still on the fence. But if what I mentioned is not a big deal for you, then these figures are probably gonna be just fine for you because they look great. They don't look terrible. All right, friends, but that's all I have on this action figures. Thank you so much for watching my video. I look forward to seeing you on my next one. Take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.